Hi guys, so I'm Hannah from Hannah Re Coaching, and today I'm super excited to invite Mariella Franker, sorry, see, said your name wrong. Um, Today to talk about really we're going to talk about like how to manage overwhelm as introverts and highly sensitive people because she has a lot of knowledge in this area. So Mariella is actually a natural productivity coach for introverts, which I think is super interesting because introverts are very different in the world we live in, and kind of I've struggled with that a lot myself. Um, so yeah, welcome. So good to have you. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me, Hannah. I'm doing very well. I lost my voice last week, so it's a little bit raspy. So I hope that doesn't bother anyone as we have our conversation. But I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's perfect. Embrace the sultry energy. Yeah, you've got to. So first of all, like I feel like I know Mariella. I went to one of her beautiful workshops recently talking about how to manage energy as an introvert, which was very insightful. I thought I've got to get you on here because I just think that the world we live in, and I'm sure you'll have something to say about this, is kind of like very built for extroverts and kind of, very like stimulating and very kind of like fast pace, which can be overwhelming for introverts. So I know something I've struggled with of how to kind of be in the world and also have time for myself, and that balancing act, which can be really tricky. So I'd love to start off. How did you get into this work? And kind of, yeah, I'm guessing you're an introvert too.
Yes, yeah. So recognizable everything that you said, and I think a lot of introverts and sensitive people recognize it because especially the Western world, right? It's so everything's big and loud, and everywhere you go now, especially online, is quite overstimulating online more and more. And the online world that never sleeps, and there's things buzzing for our attention all the time. So when you have that need to be still and to recharge yourself by being still and alone, it can feel quite overwhelming and difficult to find that time in such an overstimulating environment.
Yeah.
And I personally experienced that a lot growing up. So my journey, it takes a couple of segues. So
Yeah.
I'll give you the
Tell,
highlights and we can just
tell
take
us,
it from
yeah.
there. So growing up, I grew up in South America, in Suriname. So a very tropical country. We're outside a lot of the time. And quite a very very warm and swinging kind of culture. So people like to be together, and there's lots of gatherings all the time, which I really enjoyed. But I also noticed that I didn't like to be in those environments for a long time, or I wouldn't really participate that much. I would be the one sitting in the back looking at everyone and observing them and enjoying it that way, but don't talk to me.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. um, I was lucky that in my environment it was okay, so nobody really faulted me for it per se. I did notice that when as I went to school and entered the professional world, that's when I noticed this disconnect between what I needed and what I thought people expected of me.
That's interesting. So I just want to, because I think that's really key, the disconnect. So from what I'm hearing you say, is it like the disconnect from almost like yourself trying to be in that kind of extroverted world?
Yeah, because you
Yeah.
would get um, remarks sometimes, well-meaning remarks,
Mm,
oh, you're so shy, or
mm,
oh,
mm.
don't be so sensitive. She didn't mean it that way. You're making too big of a deal. You should just join in. Those types of well-meaning comments. But a lot of us,
Mm.
especially when you feel that that doesn't quite come natural to you, it doesn't quite feel like you want to do that, we internalize it as that something's wrong with us.
Absolutely. And do you know, that is a really important point what you said about being too shy or too sensitive. And I tell a lot of clients, I know there's something you talk about, is when you understand you're highly sensitive, because I figured this out about 3 years ago reading The Highly Sensitive Person, which is a book I recommend to everyone. It actually, there's an area in that, and it says a lot of times people that are actually highly sensitive have been called too shy their whole life, or you're too quiet, blah blah blah, and you get kind of labeled as this. And I found like that I used to go more into my shell because it felt safer and less overwhelming to kind of put yourself out there when you didn't quite feel understood at school or those kind of environments. So I think that it's getting, people are getting more aware of this idea of sensitivity, I think, isn't it? But it's allowing ourselves to be sensitive, like using that as a superpower in our businesses. So like, do you, how, because you obviously understand that about yourself, how do you kind of, there are ways that you use that to your advantage, like in the way you show up online? I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so that was a real journey for me. It still is. So I, like you, discovered quite late in my life that I was introverted in my case. And I also identify as a highly sensitive. I think for me, getting those messages when I was young, I kind of pushed it away. And I did try to toughen up in that sense by protecting myself and just only going out very selectively. So I've gotten very good at finding that balance between the overstimulation that I experience when I interact and recharging myself. But it's actually when we started talking, I think in when you joined my group and you asked a question about highly sensitive sensitivity, and I started thinking about it again and thinking back to my youth that I kind of reconnected with that part of me. And I'm still trying to reconnect with it. But I discovered, I think, well into my 20s, kind of that I was introverted. That already, like you, it made such a massive difference. It's kind of finally accepting that there's nothing wrong with us.
Yeah.
It's, just that label, just because when we get that message from other people, we also kind of feel like that when we put up barriers for ourselves. Yeah. I used to call myself a low energy person. It's like, oh yeah, I really believed it. I believed that I had less energy than other people. Like, oh, I can't go. I'm a low energy person. Yeah. Use it as an excuse.
So interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's knowing then how to navigate that in your life. Like you say, you're good at navigating how much time you can kind of spend with people. Then you need to come back to yourselves. And I think, I've been on a journey. It's a never-ending journey, but I think it's, as women in business, if we're sensitive, we can use that, I keep saying to my clients, as a superpower. But it's knowing how to navigate that, because people will say, oh, I'm really tired, and also if we're creative, I find there's a tendency to want to do so many things. The challenge is what you say no to and what you say yes to. To reserve your energy. So do you have kind of like, what's your journey been, or where are you on your journey with that kind of, how do you discern what to say yes and no to in your business?
Yeah, so I love that you also mentioned that superpower, and then choosing the things that you spend your energy on. So what to say yes and no to, because especially around productivity, prioritization, that's the major thing, right? Choosing the priority, choosing the one thing. And we get so overwhelmed and so bombarded with so many options that we feel we have to do all the things. So for me, what really changed is when I went into coaching myself, someone who's now my mentor. And she helped me discover my natural advantage. So that is, so everyone has it basically. It's it's very unique per person. It's the way that you view the world and the way that you naturally solve problems. And when I connected with that, that's when I was able to kind of push the inner critic to the background and kind of stop comparing myself to other people.
Beautiful. That's so important, isn't it? That not comparing yourself. Because I see it all the time, and I see I'm guilty of it myself. I see people in these Facebook groups, amazing women that really inspire me. And I just think like they're showing up so much. And I'm like, I just don't have the energy for that, you know? So I think it's really learning to be intentional with our time as sensitive introverts so that we have more impact when we do show up. So, you know, I guess doing less, less is more is the mantra, I would say, in that.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree with that. So there are a lot of different ways you could approach it. Like on one hand, around energy, we talked about, well, in the course that I talked about in the workshop that you joined, I explained how to create little snippets in your day to have like little pockets of recharge. And that helps to like lower the overwhelm. I think because it starts with kind of accepting the fact that we do actually process stimuli differently. So research has been done about this. And I'm a former scientist. I'm not a scientist anymore. This isn't research that I did myself, but I try to keep up with literature around this that interests me. So research has shown that introverts and extroverts, for example, that the brain processes are slightly different, especially the responses to hormones like dopamine, which is also called the happy hormone, the happiness hormone, right? But it has to do with how we respond to rewards from the outside world. And it turns out that introverts are more, their brain responds to lower levels of dopamine. So when we have it's quite fascinating that you can really see on a cellular level in the brain that there are these differences in and that translates to how we process things from the world. So it makes sense why we get overstimulated by things that don't bother more extroverted people, for example, right?
Yeah, so absolutely. Yeah. And I just can use this as a personal example, but like overstimulation, I think can come in many forms for like if you're sensitive. And one of mine is, I used to laugh about it, but I actually really struggle with bright lights, you know, like those spotlights or on like the London Underground. I used to live in London. And it would give me a headache. And I thought, what is wrong? What is wrong with me? But I've actually found a couple of other people that are also sensitive that don't like bright lights. And it's just something that just almost overstimulates my nervous system, that it's too much, that I now have a ritual where I have candles before I go to bed to just kind of calm my system down, which really helps. So I think it's finding those practices that are right for us as individuals. So do you have any tips for that, of like if you're feeling really overwhelmed day to day as an introvert, like, and I love the saying about pockets of time to recharge, is there any other things that we can do that are easy to kind of just help maintain that level of peace within us?
So something that people tell me that has helped them a lot is a simple practice that I use. I call it the win of the day practice. And I have a free ebook that explains it in more detail. And basically it's also in the realm of prioritization, because we have to-do lists. I used to have to-do lists like 100 things on there. You want to do all the things, especially when you're very creative. It needs to come out, right? And that can lead us to kind of jump from thing to thing. It can also be overstimulating, or the list just grows, which just makes us feel overwhelmed. So this practice is about choosing one thing, not from your list, but just starting blank. Throw away the list and just start blank and think about what's the one thing that if I did it, I would be really happy at the end of the day that I did.
Wow, I love that. That's so like, it strips it back and is so like simple. I love that idea, because I think exactly what you're saying. If you have a to-do list, it gets really overwhelming. And I have tried the whole scheduling planning thing and I really struggle with it. And I really love that. Just do one thing a day.
Yeah.
Takes the
So
pressure off.
it takes the pressure off. Yeah. And
Yeah.
what it also does is that usually our to-do lists, it's all about other people's needs.
Mm.
And when you put that aside and just think about a thing that you would be happy you did that day, you start putting your own needs ahead. You put them you give them a higher priority. And we often, our needs come at the back of the list, right? They come after the 200 other things that are on there. But that's the essence of how you can drain. That's basically how you drain yourself, by giving and giving and not putting anything back in.
I love that. So would you say, because we've talked about like being creative and having tons of ideas, I know I've fallen into like scattering myself between this activity and I'll do a bit of this, and it just gets overwhelming. So would you suggest, like, because I think brain dumps are really good for creative people. Do you kind of do anything like brain dumps to kind of just clear your head and then go, right, I'm going to start my day with the one thing that I want to do?
Yes, absolutely. I do that all the time. I call them my random stuff lists. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
So that's basically my first tip, to kind of choose wording and techniques that work for you. Because we sometimes think, I have to do time blocking. Right? Time blocking is a great technique and it works for some people, it works really, really well, but it doesn't work for everyone.
No, it doesn't. I've tried it. It doesn't work. Do you know, I've tried so many things and I'm very like paper to pen type person. So I realized I stopped the to-do list and I started doing it. So I'd write the things down for the week. And then every day I would go to the sort of list of things and feel, oh, what is my energy available for today? And then pick the thing I feel most inspired to do, rather than falling into the shoulds. Because I think as women, if we're kind of sensitive, we're normally empathetic and very nurturing. So we want to help other people. So it's like we want to say yes, like you're saying, and do everything and put our needs last. So I found that question to be really helpful. Like, what is my energy available for today? It takes the pressure off.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. And it completely fits with how I think about time management. I don't really believe in time management. I believe in energy management. And that we talked about that before as well. And I love that you think of it in that way. What is my energy available for today? Is it exactly how you can keep filling yourself up instead of depleting yourself. So beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, there's so many things. Like, I'm just like looking back to your like personal story, because I know that you like suffered with burnout, and I know a lot of women can suffer with that probably more so. Would you say there's a pattern between like being an introvert and suffering from burnout? Is there like a correlation with the people that struggle with burnout?
So no, I don't think there's a correlation between being introvert and burnout. What I've noticed, so I haven't looked at it specifically, but what I noticed is that it has more to do with when you don't work according to your natural process. Right. And it just so happens that introverts and sensitive people from a young age get more messages that their natural way is not right. It's not normal. It's not okay. And because we internalize that, we veer away from what feels natural, and we start, being more extroverted, trying to be more extroverted, or working all the time, or doing all the shoulds, pushing ourselves in a way that doesn't feel right, and that depletes us. So, and because extroverts usually get less of those messages, they're able to lean into their natural process from an earlier age. So I think that's maybe where that difference comes from, even though there's no direct correlation.
Wow, that's really interesting. So it's almost like, I would say the world is built for extroverts, so they feel like more at home in that environment. Whereas, is that what you're saying, that the introverts struggle because we kind of internalize that as it's kind of a negative thing to be an introvert or to be sensitive.
Yeah, that's like everyone I talk to who's an introvert or sensitive has gotten these messages in some way. And my extroverted friends, they don't have that. So it's quite clear that there is a difference there. And I've experienced it myself as well. It's more common in the Western world, because in other cultures, being quiet and reserved is more, that is a social status. So that's also quite interesting that there's cultural differences there as well.
Absolutely.
But generally, it seems that the world we live in today, it is shifting. There's more awareness coming, and it's not to say that introverts are better than extroverts, or sensitive people are better than people who are less sensitive. It's about recognizing your own strengths, and that comes back to what you mentioned, that using what you're good at as a superpower.
Absolutely.
Yeah, instead of focusing on the things we're not good at, which is what we usually tend to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that, what I've seen and understand myself is introverts are very good at listening, and you kind of, especially if you're sensitive as well, you kind of feel underneath the surface of things. So maybe somebody will say something, oh, I'm okay, but then you feel they're not okay, So in the holistic world, we can use these skills to actually go to like deeper places with our clients. I definitely know that I used to see that as a flaw, being sensitive, and now since I embraced it, I really allow that to kind of come through with my clients. And like you say, finding that natural way of being. Like my tool is like their natal chart and astrology, and everyone has their tools, but I think it's understanding what feels natural to you, what feels best, like you're saying. But I'd love to know, what do you know? What is your sun sign? Do you know your moon sign as well?
No, I don't actually. Well, sorry, I got very confused. I have been talking with Vicky, you know her as well. She has been telling me some beautiful things about my signs that I recognize so much. I do know that I'm an Aries, so that's my sun sign, right?
Okay, fire.
Fire, yes. And my Chinese astrology is, because I'm half Chinese, is the fire tiger. So that's also got fire in there.
Interesting. I was going to say I was there sensing water in you, so maybe it's something to do.
Oh, really?
But I just have to ask people in this because that's what I do. So,
Yeah.
You'll have to find out your moon sign and your rising sign as well.
Yes, that'll probably be very insightful as well.
Yeah. Definitely. So I would love to, because there's so many, I just love the way you work. It's almost like I feel like you help people, work in a way that's natural to them, with making easy, like small adjustments to make their lives easier, and so that they can show up in their business with more ease. So like what are the, like, if you could leave people with like a final bit of wisdom, if they know they're an introvert and they're sensitive, and they kind of see that in a negative light, because I know it can block us, and we feel like we need to shut that down and have those barriers around us. What would you say to them to help them kind of embrace that part of themselves and allow that to be seen, like in their work?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So let me take it one small step back before I answer your question. So I think there are two big layers to that. The first one has to do with acceptance and looking at your strengths rather than your flaws, because we all have something that we're like naturally gifted at. I don't usually use the word gifted, like effortlessly brilliant, you'd say. That has to do with your natural advantage and how you problem solve. That if you can get there, that's really a basis that is so empowering. I've seen it also with the clients that I work with, and it's the thing that helped me the most on my journey. And then the layer on top of that is kind of finding the tools and the little things that help you, like those little pockets of time, for example, or not choosing for time blocking, but choosing for a win of the day if that feels better. if you're, like the example that you gave, if you're feeling overwhelmed right now and you experience your sensitivity or being introverted as a flaw, and I recognize that a lot, that was me a couple of years, just a few years ago, and throughout most of my life. The one thing I would say is look for examples of people, like online if you have to, or in your environment, people that have traits that you admire, that are similar to yours, and that are doing things that you may want to do in the future, or things that you admire. Because a lot of the time we think we can't do things because we see different examples around us that reflect back to us what we can't do. But there are so many examples of people who are doing amazing things their own way. And seeing those examples, it changes the way the options that we see in our head. It creates a mindset shift. So if you're not sure where to start, I'd say start there. Pick one person that can be your like your online mentor, even if it's someone you've never met, you don't know, and just study that person, see how they present themselves and what they do, and make that an option for yourself.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's really good. I love practical exercise as a Capricorn. So I love that, because it's seeing the tangible, that person in those qualities, that actually they're living that, and it is possible to embody your qualities of sensitivity. I think there is a shift, like you said, and the acceptance piece is really powerful when you start seeing it as a strength. Things start to shift. So I love what you're saying. It's beautiful. And yeah, I could literally talk to you all day, but I just want to sort of slowly wrap up. So, because I know you do like one-to-one work, and you have courses to help introverts. So is there anything like coming up that you'd love to share with people, and how they can work with you? What would be the next step?
Yeah, so I have, I'm doing a free masterclass every month on different topics. And they're all about like giving you the ideas and the tools that you need to be naturally productive in your own way. So the next one coming up next month is about how to deal with, let's call them unloved tasks. Okay. The things that so I've talked, the previous master classes were all about not focusing on the things you don't want, but of course we all have things on our list that need to be done, even though they don't energize us. So how do you deal with those?
That's really interesting. Yeah. So I will drop all your links in the description so people can connect. So are they like on Zoom every month?
Yeah, so it's a Zoom meeting, it's a Zoom. It's on Zoom, and they can also get the recording, because not everyone wants to be in a live masterclass, because it can also be overstimulating being there with multiple people. So I always offer the option to watch the recording in your own time after.
Oh, I love that idea. Yeah, absolutely. I can vouch for that. As I think it's just being groups, isn't it? You then need to unwind after that when you as an introvert. Amazing. And so what are the best, well, I put all your social links as well so people can connect with you. What's the best way people want to like connect with you on socials?
Yeah, so oddly enough, but it makes sense. My favorite way to connect is email. So
love it. Old fashioned, but love it.
Very old fashioned. I am on all the social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, but I love it when people send me an email. So you can find my email address is just mariella@thefrankermessage.com. So you can send me an email there, or visit my website and you can find information there as well of how to contact me.
Amazing. Great. Well, I'll leave all the notes, links, so people can connect with you. But I just want to thank you for your time and sharing your wisdom, because I feel like there's so much. I feel like I've learned so much in like half an hour, and I'm sure this will be of benefit to other people that are struggling with to embrace their sensitivity. So thank you for all your words of wisdom and knowledge, and for just showing up as you. So
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Hannah. It's really a pleasure talking with you. And like I said, not because of you. So thank you for that. And thank you for sharing.
oh, my pleasure. My internet looks dodgy now. See, maybe it's time to go. So oh, it's back. Sorry, it paused. So just you shared so much. I love it. What is one thing you would like if somebody's watching this and you want them to remember or just take away one thing from this, like what would you say is the one thing to leave people with, let's say? Booted me out on that note. Did you hear what I said?
No, I didn't. Could you repeat it, please?
Yeah, sure. So I was saying, if there's something like if women are watching this and they're just like, oh, I don't know where to start, and you've given so many tips, is there like a little bit of word of wisdom that you'd like women to leave them with?
Yeah. So I think I would say give yourself permission to put your own needs first. And it sounds like a really big thing. And basically the win of the day practice is a very simple way to do that, because it's the first thing you do in the morning, the first thing you do with your day. Just to think about what would I want to do today?
I love that.
10 minutes to just think about it. You don't even have to do the thing.
Yeah, love it.